Alright, technical manual, operation manual, diesel electric locomotive. Part 6, inspection and maintenance, chapter 17, regulations governing inspection and testing. Section 1, brake equipment. 160, general. Before starting each trip, an engine man also ascertains that the locomotive brakes are in safe, suitable condition for the service and the air compressor or the compressors are in condition to provide an ample supply of air to the service within the locomotive place. The devices for regulating all pressure are properly performing the functions, brake valves working properly in all positions, and the water has been drained from the air brake system. 161, safety valves. The main reserve of each unit will be equipped with at least one safety valve, the capacity of which was sufficient to prevent accumulation for more than 10 pounds of pressure psi for the working air pressure fixed with the chief officer of the operating locomotive. B. A suitable governor will be provided that will stop and start the air compressor within 5 pounds above or below the pressure fixed. The compressor governor, when used in connection with the automatic and air brake system, will be so adjusted that the compressor will start to the main reserve pressure is not less than 15 pounds above maximum brake pipe pressure is fixed at the railway equipment superintendent of the theater. It will not stop the compressor until the reservoir pressure has increased not less than 10 pounds. The compressor or compressors must be tested capacity, or if it's tested as conditions require, not less than frequently than the one each 3 months. The diameter or orifices of the compressor and the mix of minimum reserve air pressures to maintain during the testing of compressors is commonly used as shown in Table 3. Table 3 is a mechanically operated air compressor. It goes over the different models, types of compressor for the Garden Denver, the ABE, the ADX, just basic types of compressor. The compressor's motor speed and RPMs, the diameter of the test orifices in inches, and the minimum reservoir air per pounds, rating from 58 to 60 pounds. 58 with a 55, 58 to 96, somewhere in between 58 and 57 and 96 pounds. More air compressors may continued. Consult the manufacturer specification for the orifice testing air compressor not listed in Table 3. The specification indicated must be used for altitudes including 1,000 feet. The altitudes over 1,000 feet amount the air pressure was shown to be reduced 4% of each of the 100,000 feet increased altitude. The minimum capacity of the compressor permitted in the service will be approximately 80% of the capacity of the compressor when new. The air pressure regulating devices must be adjusted to the following pressure. Minimum brake pipe air pressure is 70 pounds. Minimum differential between the brake pipe and the main reserve air pressure of the brake valve in the running position is 15 pounds. Safety valves and straight air brakes are 40 to 55 pounds. Safety valves are the LE, LT, ET, and number 8 EL, and number 14 EL, number 6 DS, and number 6 BL, and number 6 SL. Equipment 40 to 68 pounds. Safety equipment of the HSE number 24 RL equipment 40 to 75 pounds. Reducing valve for the independent straight air brake 30 to 50 pounds. Self-lapping portions of electro-pneumatic brake minimum full application pressure. The 65-pound self-lapping portion of independent air brake full application pressure 30 to 50 pounds, reducing the valve of the air signal 40 to 60 pounds, reducing the valve of the high-speed brake minimum of 50 pounds is 162. Hydrostatic testing of the main reserve. Every main reserve will be subjected to a hydrostatic pressure of the not less than 25% above the fixed minimum working pressure. A report will be made of the Department of Defense Form 1336 monthly inspection repair report of locomotives and locomotive cranes other than steam. Figure 93, lease of one every 12 months. The entire surface of each main reserve will be hammered and tested at each time the locomotive is shopped and general repairs. This must be done at least once every 18 months and reported in the Department of Defense Form 1336. This test will be made while the reservoir is empty. 163, air gauges. Air gauges will be located and they may be read conveniently by the engine man from its customary position in the cab. The gauges will be tested at least once every 3 months. Whenever the irregularity is reported, there will be compared with an accurate dead weight test or test gauge constructed for the purpose of testing gauges. An air gauge is found with incorrect repair before they are returned to the service. 164. Cleaning. Distributing of the controlling valves, reducing valves, triple valves, transfer valves, straight air, double check valves, brake pipe vent valves, dirt collectors will be cleaned and maintained as often as condition requires. They should be done at least once every 6 months. The date of the testing, cleaning, and the initial of the shop station at the work, which is done and stenciled legibly in the conspicuous place on the parts of the place on a card displayed under the glass of the cab of each locomotive. 165. Foundation brake gear. Generally, the foundation brake gear maintained with the standard of the locomotive levers, rods, brake beams, hangers, and pins will be ample strength and will not foul any way which will affect the proper operation of the brake. All pins will be properly secured in the place of the cotters. Split keys and nuts. Brake shoes will be properly fastened to the place and kept approximately in the line of the tread of the wheel. The piston travel. Minimum brake cylinder piston travel will be sufficient to provide brake shoe clearance when the brakes are released. Maximum brake cylinder piston travel when the locomotive is standing must not exceed the following: drive wheel brake, a 6-inch swivel type truck brake with the brakes more than one truck operated, one brake cylinder, 7 inches swivel truck. Truck brake equipped with one brake cylinder, 8 inches. Swivel type truck brake cylinder, each with 2 or more brake cylinders, 6 inches. 166. The minimum reserve leakage. Leakage from the main air reserve related to the pumping, leakage from the main air reserve and related to the piping must not exceed average of 3 pounds per minute in a test of 3 minutes duration. Made after the pressure is reduced 40% below the maximum pressure. Brake pipe leakage must not exceed 55 pounds per minute. With a full service application of the maximum brake pipe pressure with the communication of the brake cylinder is closed, the brake must remain applied not less than 5 minutes. Section 2, drawing and running gear. Draw gear and running gear. Draw gear connections. The draw gear between the units and the locomotive and the connections between the trucks will be ample strength and will be maintained in the safe, suitable condition for service. Provisions will be made in securing the drawbar pins and pins articulated connection. A plate with a stirrup will be provided with under the lower end of the all drawbar articulated connection with the preventing the pin from the falling out of the place of the breakage. C. The drawbar pins when used between the units in any locomotives will be removed only as often as condition may be required, at least once every 6 months. When used in between the trucks, they will be removed each time the locomotive is shopped in general eco-line repairs, or at least once every 18 months. When the drawbars and pins are removed, their connections will be inspected carefully for defects. Date of the last inspection must be stamped legibly on the heads of the pins and the drawbars. D. Lost motion of articulated connection will be kept. The minimum will not exceed 1/4 of an inch of each pin. Pins are articulated connection between the units of any locomotive and will be removed at least once every 6 months, and the pins articulated connection between the trucks will be removed at least once every 18 months. The articulated connection pins are removed. They will be inspected carefully and for defects. Date of the last removal inspection will be stamped legibly on the heads of the pins. C. When drawbars are used between the units of locomotive, the shafting iron or the spring buffers of the permitted the proper curving of the protecting are properly attached to each unit. They will be maintained condition to permit the free movement of the laterally and vertically. Lost motion between the shafting irons will be kept. The minimum must not exceed 1/2 of an inch. Buffer springs will be applied not less than 3/4 of an inch. Compression will at all times sufficient compression key to keep the shafting faces in the proper alignment and contact. Shafting irons or spring buffers will not be required for the drawbars designed and constructed for the purpose of the taking of the buffing stress. When such drawbars are used, the loss of motion will be kept in the minimum and will not exceed 1/4 of an inch at either end. F. Draw gear. Draw gear between the units of the locomotive consisting with the automatic couplers with the friction spring draft gear will be maintained in such a condition that a loss of motion in each draw gear assembly not absorbed by the springs or friction develops will not exceed 1/2 of an inch. Draw gears between any locomotive and consistent automatic couplers without friction and spring draft gear will have loss of motion to keep them in a minimum, while loss of motion between the coupler and the coupler pocket will be not exceed 1/4 of an inch in each assemblage. If the coupler is attached to the main means of the pivot means the pins will be removed and inspected at least once every 6 months. The date of the last inspection of the pins will be stamped lightly on the heads of the pins and all prior dates obliterated. B. The draft gear attachments to the locomotive will be ample strength, securely attached, and maintained in the safe and suitable condition for service, including couplers and all operating gear. Standard couplers measuring 5 1/8 of an inch more between the point of knuckle and guard arm will not be continued into service. 168. Running gear. Axles driven on the truck axles with any of the following defects will be contained in service. Cracked or bent axles are out of the journals that cannot be made out to run cool without turning. Steam journal and steel axis, a seamy journal and a steel axle, transverse seam in an iron axle and any seams of the iron axle causing journal to run hot. 4. Driving and truck axles unsafe for accounting of the usage, accident, and derailment. 5. Driving the truck axles more than 1/2 an inch under the original diameter. B. General gear guards. Exposed gears will be provided with the safe and suitable guards. Gears and pinions with any of the following defects will not be continued in service. Gears and pinions loose on the shaft. Gears or pinions broken or cracked or with badly worn teeth. Broken and defective rim fastenings. Gears and pinions out of the alignment and properly meshed. Split gears will be loose and missing the bolts. C. Lateral motion. The total lateral motion between the hubs of the wheel boxes of any of the pair of the wheels will not exceed the following limits. Truck wheels 1 inch. Driving wheels more than one pair of the wheels 3/4 of an inch. Lateral motion will also insist that keeping such a limit as the driving axles, rods, crank pins, armatures will not interfere with other parts of the locomotive. D. The frames and parts. Frames, decks, plates, tail pieces, pedestals, brakes will be maintained in the safe, suitable condition. For service, will be cleaned and inspected thoroughly each time the locomotive is in the shop, generally, or equine repairs. Spring rigging. Springs equalizer will be arranged to ensure the proper distribution of weight and the cushioning and shock of the various wheels, so they will be maintained approximately level. Springs and spring rigging with any of the following defects will be renewed and repaired properly. 2 leaf broken, 2 leaves in top half, 3 leaves and spring broken long side of the spring is considered top. Spring with leaves working in the band, broken coil springs, broken, cracked or badly worn driving boxes, saddle, equalizers, hangers, or bolt or gib or pin. Trucks. Truck center plates will fit properly. A male center plate will extend to the female center plate not less than 3/4 of an inch, except for the motor trucks constructed by the transmit tractive effort from the center of the plate of the center pin. The male center plate must extend into the female center plate not less than 1.5 inches. The center plate will be fastened, maintained securely. The trucks are removed, and the reason for the female center plate will be cleaned for any accumulated scale and lubricated with large stock greasing before the replacing truck. 2. Center pins and substantial head of the key. The nuts of each end of the other suitable means with a hole carrying the holster of the truck will provide a center devices will maintain the properly. A safety chain of the minimum consistently length will provide at each corner of the 4-wheel and 6-wheel truck, except for the construction, and prevents the truck slewing in the case of derailment. All parts of the truck will have sufficient clearance to prevent them from seriously interfering with any of the parts of the locomotive. Truck bolsters will be maintained approximate level. Suitable means of securing radius and pins and will be provided. Inverted radiuses, bars, and pins will be held in place by plate and stirrup. Trucks with any of the following defects will not be continued in service. Cracked arch bar, loose column, pedestal, journal box, bolt, cracked or broken frame unless properly repaired, loose tie bar, broken or defective motor, suspension lug, spring bar or bolt, broken or cracked center casting, cracked or broken equalizer, hanger, gip or pin, motor suspension lugs otherwise be able to strengthen, and provisions may be to prevent nose supported motors falling into the case of the failure to the motorsport. Side bearings. Side bearings will be fastened securely in the place. Friction side bearings with a spring designed to carry the weight will not be continued in service with more than 25% of the springs broken in any one of the nests. 2. Friction side bearings, unless designed to carry the weight, will not be run in contact with the maximum clearance of the side bearings will not exceed 1.25 of an inch of each side of the total of 1/2 of an inch on both sides. When more than 2 side bearings are used under the same rigid superstructure, the clearance of one pair of side bearings will not exceed 1/4 of an inch on each side, or a total of 1/2 inch on both sides. The other side bearings under the same rigid superstructure may have 1/2 inch of clearance on each side, total of 1 inch of both sides. These clearance apply for the spread of the side bearings in 50 inches or less. Where the spread is greater, the side of the bearing clearance may be increased to the portion. Side bearing clearance. The modified investigation shows operating conditions and construction warranting such modifications. H. Clearance above the top of the rail. No part appliance of the locomotive except for the wheels will be less than 2.5 inches above the top of the rail. Section 3. Wheels. 169. Wheels to tight axle. Wheels are pressed securely against the axle except for the wheels on the axle. Special design construction, whether they are proper safe means and provided for the holding of the wheels on the axle. The wheels mounting pressure are listed on the table 4, the paragraph 229. Pricking, punching, and shimming and wheel fitting of the driving pins in the end of the axles will not be permitted. When wheels are tripped and tires are applied with the turn of the diameter of the wheel, the same axis will not vary for more than 3/32 of an inch. When all wheels and tires are turned on the new wheels applied with the rod connected to the driving wheel base, the diameter of such wheel will be within 3/32 of an inch of an average diameter other than the wheels of the more given the driving wheel base. C. Wheels are used in standard gauge track will be out of the gauge, inside of the gauge, and flange measured on the baseline is less than 53 inches and more than 53.5 inches. Counterbalances will be used will maintain in the safe and suitable condition for services. On locomotives in the road surface, minimum height of the flange measured in the tread of the will be 1 inch, and switching locomotives in the main height it will be 7/8 of an inch, except that the construction does not permit the full height of the flange on all driving wheels and the ridge wheel, and such exemptions of the height of the flange on each at least 2 wheels of the drivers will not less than 1/8 of an inch. 1 inch in road locomotives and not less than 7/8 of an inch on the switching locomotives. The others may have flanges minimum height of 5/8 inches where plain tires and 5/8 inch flanges are used in front of the rear drivers. Trucks will be provided with safe guiding for locomotives. Figure 88. The maximum tamper for the tread of the driving wheels from the throat of the flange to the outside of the locomotive used in the road surfaces will be 1/4 of an inch. On the locomotives used in switching services, the tamper will be 5/16 of an inch. The maximum tap in the tread of the truck wheels with the throat of the flange outside the wheel will be 5/16 of an inch. The minimum of the width of the wheels for the driving truck wheels in standard gauge locomotives within 5.5 inches of the flange tire and 6 inches of the plain tire. The minimum tires of the driving truck wheels in narrow gauge locomotives will be 5 inches. Flange tires 5.5 inches on plain tires. The limited prescribed CEG above the modified application of the commanding officer investigation shows the condition warranting in such modification. 170. Wheel defects. Wheels with any of the following defects will not be continuing service. Defects are according to the provision of the Association of American Railroad Wheels Axle Manual, the standardization railway reference on the subject. Slid fat and flat spots of more than 2.5 inches over the length of their 2 or more adjoining spots, and each 2 inches over the length. Broken or chipped flanges if the chip exceeds the 1/2 of an inch length of 1/2 of an inch width. A broken rim in the tread measured with the flange of the point of 5/8 of an inch above the tread of the less than 3 3/4 of an inch in width. Wheels with defective treads accounting for the cracked shelled out spots of 2.5 inches over some numerous endangered safety wheels. Any seam running lengthwise of the length limit of 3 3/4 of an inch from the flange. Wheels of the flange having a flat vertical surface extending from 1 inch or more than the treaded flanges of 15/16 of an inch thick or less gauged on point of 3/8 of an inch above the tread will not be continuing to service. The cast iron or cast steel wheels on an axle with journals 5 by 9 inches over will be continued in service with the flanges having the flat vertical surface extending 7/8 of an inch more than the tread of the flange of 1 inch thickness or less gauges at the point of 3/8 of an inch above the tread. Wheels that will tread on hollow 5/16 of an inch locomotive used in road surfaces or 3/8 of an inch locomotive on switching surfaces. Wheels tracked outward from the wheel foot fit cracked tread of the cracked wheel, crack plate, or one more cracked brackets or wheels are loose on the axle. Loose or broken, defective retaining rings and tires or bolts. Flanges more than 1/2 of an inch 1 1/2 of an inch from the tread of the top of the flange. Thickness of the tires, then showing in the paragraph 171. The wheels of the tires out of the gauge roll steel with 13/8 of an inch or less in thickness. Throat of the flange 1 inch less than thickness of the rim used in road surfaces. 11/8 of an inch or less in thickness from the throat of the flange, from 3/4 of an inch or less in thickness of the rim when used in switching surfaces. This limit shows the M may be modified. An application commanding officer investigation shows the condition warning such modifications. This shows the flange wheel for the minimum thickness of the rim, and this is a wheel gauge. It's a wheel gauge for the wheel flange. 171 minimum tire thickness. The minimum thickness of the driving wheel on the standard narrow gauge locomotive is 1 inch when used in the railroad service, 3/4 of an inch when used in the yard service. Wheels will not be reapplied to the reapplied to axles with tire thickness of turning is less than 1/4 of an inch above the minimum. The thickness of the tires may be modified. The commanding officer approval of the investigation showing the conditions of warning such a modification. Section 4. Cab lights, whistles, bells, and standard signals. Cabs. Well, the word cab is used in these rules and instructions. Many of the proportion superstructure utilize the house of the engine man. Part of the locomotive through the passageway is provided with the use of the engine man. Cabs and superstructures will be attached circularly in the cab windows located and maintained so that the engine will have clear of the right track and the signal usually proper the position in the cab. Front cab doors, windows which are aligned in engine vision, will they lock ahead for the usual proper position in the cabs with equipped the appliance for the cleaning of the outside of the windows sufficient space to provide a clear view of the track. Signals ahead, they may be equipped with the window which has hinges on the top and so placed in the glass of each of the door. Windows are closed to open and fasten the desired position of the cab. Hinged windows will be 5 inches or higher than the lower edge of the wheel without obstruction nearly possible within the engine man's vision when he is seated in the cab. Deck plates or floor or cab passageways, cab compartments will be kept away from accumulation, oil, water, oil waste, or any obstructions that can create unnecessary hazards. Deck plates and metal floors will be roughened properly with other provisions made to afford secure footing. Floors and engine man compartments will be constructed or covered in a heating insulation material. The engine man compartments will be provided with a heating arrangements that will maintain the temperature of not less than 50 degrees. The temperature will be taken substantially in the center of the compartment under the norm winter weather condition. Under the running conditions of the locomotive, which the door windows will be closed. Aprons and covers will be used between the compartments, will be proper length and width to ensure the safety will be hinged and fastened securely. Roughened and over the provisions will be made for the securing. 173. The lights. The headlights. Each locomotive in the railroad service sunsets and sunrise will be equipped with headlights and sufficient illumination to permit the person from the cab of the locomotive to see in the clear atmosphere in the dark. Man-sized objects less than 800 feet in front of the headlight, such as the headlight, will be maintained in good condition. Each locomotive is regularly required for the run backward from portions of the trip will equip with the rear headlight which meets the requirements of the number 1 above. When such a headlight described in 1 and 2 above will be provided with a device whereby the lights will be dimmed at the stations and the yards and meeting of the train. When 2 or more locomotives are used in the same train leading, the locomotive only will be required to display a headlight. Each locomotive used in the yard service between sunset and sunrise will have 2 lights, one located in the front of the locomotive, one on the rear. The rear headlight will be sufficient power to enable the person in the cab locomotive under the conditions set forth above to see the dark objects that there is described in distance at least 300 feet ahead of them in front of such a headlight, such as the headlights are may maintain in good condition. B. Classification of marker lights. Each locomotive provided with each classification marker lights as may be required, which the lamps are used to maintain in good working condition. Classifying will be lighted electrically. Cab light. Each locomotive will have the cab lights will provide the sufficient illumination of the control instruments and meters, the gauges, and engage the engine man to make sure accurate readings from the usual proper position in the cab. These lights have the located construction maintained in the lights so they shine only on the parts of the requiring illumination. A little will be conveniently located and enable the personal operation locomotive to read the train orders timetable easily. It will be so constructed that it will may quickly shield and extinguish. Cab passageways and compartments will be adequately illuminated with the person required to pass the one cab to another. The platform passageway from them to illuminate. It will be illuminated. Lights will be of constructed shields and that they will not be interfered with the engine vision of the track signal. The lights may be supplied entirely with the stored batteries and desired with the lights are not supplied with the stored batteries that will be two or more lighting circuits of the passage illuminating required by the 1, 2, and 3 battery connection contactors with the properly noted. Blackout operation when operation is tactical conditions the prescribed blackouts are all locomotives will be holding and disconnected as directly as local commanders. 174 whistles, bells, and sanders and train signals whistles. Each locomotive will be provided with a suitable whistle and equivalently located to maybe operated conveniently with the engine man in the customary positions in the cab. Sanders. Each locomotive unit will be equipped with the proper standing apparatus. Standings must be fastened securely and arranged with the delivery of sand of the rails in front of the contact. Sanders will be tested before each trip. Headlights, sandboxes, bells, whistles. Headlights, sandboxes, bells, whistles will be located in a safe and accessible place. Where the locomotives are equipped with the overhead current collectors, headlights, sandboxes located with the constructed or arranged that they may be given the necessary repairs attention without requiring a person to mount the roof or become exposed to the contact of the parts carrying high tension electrical current. Train air signal system. The train air signal will be tested before each trip, maintaining a safe, suitable condition for service. Section 5, Electrical Equipment. 175. General. Current carrying parts. All current carrying parts connected with the circuit's potential more than 150 volts will be isolated, insulated with the guard against the accidental contact. Doors and cover plates marked with the danger. All doors and cover plates guarded with the high tension equipment will be securely fastened in place with the captain marked with the danger and will state the normal voltage carried by the parts that's so protected. Rheostatic grid resistor. All rheostatic grid resistors will be maintained freely in accumulation for the dirt and extraneous matter. Installation inspection. Carefully inspection of all visible insulation and electrical connections will be made not less than once every month and all defects repaired. 176 hand-operated switches. All hand-operated switches may be operated while under the load and carrying currents with potential of more than 150 volts will be included into against improper covered and operative from the outside. Means will be provided also to show whether the switches are open or closed. Switches may be operated while under the guard against the accidental contact with the key plainly marked with the words must not be operated under load. State the voltage carried. B. A circuit breaker or contactor fuse will be maintained in the safe, suitable condition for service and will be located in the guard of the persons may be not injured on their operation. Oil tape circuit breakers will be maintained in the safe, suitable condition. 177 jumpers. Jumper cables and connections between the locomotives and units might not be allowed to hang on one end of the free. Chains or hooks or fastening looses and will be provided. Cable connections between units and jumpers all be cleaned, inspected, tested as often as conditions require meet the safe suitable condition. Condition for service not less than once every 3 months. Each jumper carrying current having potential of 600 volts more will be tested, immersed in the cable portion in water, subjecting each conductor with another with the water in deference of the potential of not less than 1/3 of the time of normal working voltage for not less than 1 minute. Date of the place of the inspection test will be stenciled legibly on the jumper and stamped on the metal tag attached securely to the jumper. Cable connections between units and jumpers with any of the following defects will not be continued in service: broken or badly shaped installation, broken or defective plugs, receptacles, terminals, broken, protruding, stranding wires, and jumpers of improper length. 178 motors and generators. Motors and generators will be fastened securely. Axle collars will be maintained tight on the axle. Axle bearings and armature bearing caps will be bolted securely in place. Motors and generators with the following defects will not be continued in service: broken, loose, or excessive worn bearing, excessive sparking, flashing over the communicator, defective collector, ring, brush holder, yoke, insulator, loosened or broken, armature coil bands or wedges, short-circuited armature field coils. 179. Voltmeters and ammeters. All volt and ammeters are units receiving the power outside of the source will be tested whenever the irregularity reported at least once every 6 months. Voltage ammeters on the units driven from the power generated within the unit tested whenever any irregularity reported at least once every 12 months. Meter readings more than 5% of the error will be corrected. 180. Installation dielectrical test. An installation dielectrical test not less than 1 minute duration will be not applied unless once every of the two all the circuits post carrying the current with potential more than 150 volts applied for the circuit or the motor generator's windings will not be less than 75% of the normal working voltage. The voltage applied to the windings is not less than 50% above the normal working voltage. Careful examination will be made of any of the weaknesses and all defects will be remedied before the locomotive is returned to service. Section 6, Internal Combustion Equipment. 181, Fuel tanks and piping. Generally, fuel tanks are related to the piping of the maintained free leaks when the fuel is fed for the tank. The gravity of the or pressure. A safety HUD-out valve will be provided with the fuel line adjacent to the supply tank. The valve will close automatically when tripped and can be operated with the hand from inside or outside of the cab. Fuel tanks and related piping will be grounded electrically. Filling and the venting of the fuel reserves will be arranged with the filled with the venting from the outside of the cab of the compartment's vented pipes are not discharged from the discharged on the roof or nor are between the rails. A gauge which indicates properly the level of the fuel reserve will be provided for each of the reserve series of the reserve connected filled with a common source of the gauge located at their visible person filling the reserves. 182. The exhaust gases. Exhaust gases will be released entirely outside the cab of the compartment's pipes carrying hot gases. Exposed moving parts of the mechanism liable to cause personal injury will be isolated and guarded against personal contact. Report forms.